Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. It's me, Josh Kahn, which means it's an interview show. Today, I am joined by author, returning guest, and friend of the show. It's Anthony Northrup. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing great, Joshua. How you doing? Hello to all your listeners out there.
Yeah, it's so... before we started rolling, you said it's been how long since we had you on the first time?
4 years.
4 years. So much has happened in 4 years.
I know. It's crazy.
It's maddening. We got to see each other in person in that time.
Yes, we did. Yes,
yeah.
We did. Yeah, August of 2022 in your neck of the woods over there in Iowa at the Altering Currents Festival. And that was a great time.
But I wanted to have you back on the show because you have released your second book, Stephen King Dollar Baby, the sequel. This monster, it's over 900 pages of amazing interviews, amazing stories, fun facts. I'm excited to get into all of it with you. So first off, what inspired you to write the sequel?
Well, when the first book came out, Stephen King Dollar Baby, the book, in January of 2021, it was my first published book. I was new in the water of the writing community and publishing community, and it was a roller coaster ride that first year. I was doing interviews, in-store book signings, podcast shows like yours, and a whole bunch of stuff. It was just a crazy year, and my publisher was so happy with the results because I was #1 at Amazon and Bear Manor Media when it first came out.
That's so awesome.
I know.
Congratulations.
I never would have thought in a million years. I cried.
You deserved it. It's a ton of hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the publisher's like, hey, what do you got next? And in my back of my mind, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to write a trilogy? But I'm like, no, I'm not going to. There's no way I can do a trilogy, but maybe a sequel. And then my publishers, and I talked to a couple of writer friends of mine, who got their advice, and they said, yeah, do a second one. And there's a lot more to tell. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. My publisher said yes, sign the contract. Got to work.
That's awesome. So you said going into it, you knew you had more to tell. How did you want to make this second one bigger, better?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the reaction from the readers and the Stephen King fans and the Dollar Baby community themselves was overwhelming. I mean, It was amazing. And a lot of the Dollar Babies reached out and said, hey, are you going to do another one? I'd love to be in it. And I took notes and took emails and things written down and said, well, let me get back to you. Let me see what happens, So there was that. And then the other thing was I really enjoyed what I did in this first book, but I felt I wanted to go deeper. I pulled the curtain back in the first book to show fans what a Dollar Baby is and how it worked and where it came from and all that. But I wanted to go even further into the tent and show people stories from the set, things they would never know, happened while filming these, what it takes to make these films, And then I thought, wait a minute, go even further than that. Let's talk to the actors. Let's talk to the makeup crew. Let's expand it all, get everybody involved, So I did that. And then there were, a couple of Dollar Baby film festivals that I was host of, and I thought, well, let's put a chapter of that in there. So I had to do that, and then I wanted to put some surprises in there too. And then the next thing you know, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. 958 pages later, I really did not intend for it to be that monstrosity size. It took me 2.5 years to write that second book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. Personally, I really enjoyed the interviews with the actors because acting is my jam. So getting to get what it was like from them on set and everything was really cool because we get to talk to the directors plenty of times. That's who you got to talk to most of the time, and getting that just what it was like in the shit.
Well, yeah, because I wanted those behind the scenes stories. I wanted those on the set stories. I wanted to know the dirt,
Yeah.
And but I also felt that there's an audience out there who are interested on how these films get made, the technology, the makeup, the special effects, the long hours. There's a audience out there for that type of thing. And I've actually found myself reading more books about how movies are made. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I really do. So I I'm getting into that part of my life where I find that more interesting than just watching a movie.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's been a long time since you did a lot of these interviews. It's been over the course of this, but are there any of the stories that are in this book that, off the top of your head, just that surprised you, that really engaged you?
Well, some of these filmmakers, they went on to other things, other projects, bigger films. They wrote books, they did television series or Netflix or whatever. They went on to big things. What touched me the most was some of the other filmmakers that this was their only 15 minutes of fame, or this was their only moment in the spotlight. And they went back to their 9-to-5 job, or they, and I'm going to spoiler here. I have to reveal this one part in the book here.
Okay.
That truly not just made myself cry, I'm going to admit it, but my wife bawled her eyes out for 10 minutes. There's a director in here that I interviewed. He made his film for 5 minutes with his cell phone. Just a short film. Man Who Loved Flowers was the story he did.
Yeah.
But he was in Russia. And when we did our interview, it was literally days before the Ukraine-Russian war started.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah. And so we were writing back and forth, and he kept telling me, Tony, they're talking about turning off power. They're threatening about turning off the internet. I don't know if we can have time to do this interview. And I got the interview, and the last thing he told me in the book, on the email, was, I don't know if you'll hear from me again, but your book changed my life, and that's why I made this movie. And that was the last time I heard from him.
Oh, my God.
That pulled the emotional strings like you have no idea. And it's that story is in this book.
Wow.
So,
that's wild.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
It is, and it kills me to not know what happened to him, But to just the part where he said that my book inspired him to make a Dollar Baby was just the biggest honor I can ever ask for.
Absolutely, yeah. People who are inspired by what you do, there's no better reward.
No, and I didn't know I could affect people that way, but I did.
Yeah,
and I'm very humbled. Very humbled.
Getting to affect people in the community is so great. You mentioned a minute ago that the feedback that you got from the community, that whole scope. I'm most curious about readers that aren't like Stephen King buffs. I'm sure you had some people in the community that in your life that were reading some Stephen King stuff for the first time. What was that reaction like, hearing back from them?
Yeah, you know what? That was one of the main goals I even started this whole thing, is because I, just like myself, I don't know if I told you the backstory of how I discovered what a Dollar Baby was. As I was reading, I was going to that scholar stage of my Stephen King fandom where I wanted to know more about King, his works, his backstory, past just the books and the movies,
Yeah.
So I was reading the complete encyclopedia of Stephen King by Stephen Spignetti, my great friend.
Yeah.
You're in there about Dollar Babies, and James Cole did an article in this book, and I was reading this, and I'm like, what's a Dollar Baby? And I was intrigued. I was curious. And then it was on social media that I saw a Dollar Baby filmmaker, Billy Hansen, who did Survivor Type.
Oh, so good.
Yes, one of the best. He was talking about his movie was being released and it was finished, and he was going to hit the film festival circuit. And that's how I reached out to him and got contact with him. And he was the first of many, many interviews.
That's so crazy that was the first one.
He's the first one. I owe him everything. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here. So, yeah. But going back to your question, there's a lot of, fans and friends I have and stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, I like Stephen King. I've read it. I've read The Stand. I've seen The Shining 100 times. And I'm like, well, don't you know what a Dollar Baby is? And they're like, no. And I tell them what it is. And they're like, there's short films based on his short story. And I'm like, yes. And they're awesome and they're amazing. And then they get interested. And I've had people buy the first book, and I look at them and you wouldn't expect that they would, buy it and read it and be so blown away, but they are. And they're like, I'm glad I bought this. This was great. It opened the door about Stephen King's universe that I didn't know about. And that was my goal. That's what I wanted. Open that door.
You did it.
Yeah.
You drug him in.
Yes, I
Now,
did.
now they're one of us.
They're one of us. Yes, coming to
It's
me.
it's really interesting though that like you're talking about bringing some people who were Stephen King adjacent or casual fans deeper in, and now earlier you just mentioned that you are diving deeper into filmmaking and things. It's so interesting how the turns keep going, like
Yeah.
there's always something deeper to dive into.
Yeah, there's always a stone that hasn't been unturned yet.
Yeah.
Curtain hasn't pulled quite far back enough or something. And with this second book, I think I think by the time I was done, I'm like, I don't think I've got any stones left to overturn. I think I've covered it all. I really did.
Did any of the Dollar Baby filmmakers you covered in the sequel here share experiences that changed your perspective on Dollar Babies? Because I know there's a big jump in technology in filmmaking. Most of what you covered in the first book were those very early ones up to present, and now a lot of this is more modern.
Yeah, it's amazing because if you go back and I've seen way over 100 of these films. I've seen the very first early ones to the ones that came out, just last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing technology-wise how far we've come from an 8mm camera that James Cole did with his film, Last Rung on the Ladder, to people using a simple cell phone to make a movie. And I got to tell you, some of these movies that were used with a cell phone, not too many, there's a few, you would never have guessed that was made with a cell phone.
Really?
Amazing, the technology and the clarity and the sound. And I'm like just blown away by it,
That's wild.
And another thing too is some of these filmmakers, their budget. Some of them have, I think there was a $60,000 budget for their film, and it looks like a full-length film you see in the movie theater. And then there's some who I know for a fact she spent $100 $100 to make her movie. Diana Russell, she's a sweetheart. She's my biggest fan, actually. She made Lucky Quarter, and she really just
That's the one we watched that at the festival, didn't we? Was that the one we screened?
No, that was a different one.
Oh, okay.
That was a different one. Lucky Quarter was played at the King Kong convention last year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. And I'm so jealous. I was so sad that we missed out.
I wanted to go, but I had a deadline. I had to get the book done, and if I'd gone, I would have been putting me behind. And
sure.
I just missed it. But you never know where if I pop up the next one, maybe.
Yeah, we'll hang out in 2026.
Yeah.
So after this, it was a #1 seller. You got to do all those book signings. Do you have any stories from book signings?
Just, I went to a few of them, here I'm in North Dakota, so there's not too many bookstores left up here. So, the furthest I had to go, I went to one down in Fargo and had an actual, this is really a fun story. I went to Fargo last spring, and one of the Dollar Babies, Max Blaska, who did his version of Last Rung on the Ladder, he drove with his mother all the way from Wisconsin to be at that book signing. And so we
did. My God.
Yeah, it was great. He came, we did the book signing. We played a couple of Dollar Baby movies in the store. And then we all went out for dinner afterwards. And we just had the great time. We talked about Stephen King for hours. And, it was a wonderful, wonderful time to meet him in person. And he was a great guy. And his movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
I gotta say, man, Tony, the thing that I appreciate most about you is you really do have such a positive energy about bringing fans together.
Oh,
like it's in here in the book when you were here for Alternating Currents. We're talking about your groupies. But it's true. Like anytime, like after when we're outside of the theater, people would just gather. Your circle became where the conversation always congregated. It was real interesting. You have a way about you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess what I've heard from almost everybody I ever encounter when it comes to this or Stephen King or movies or 80s pop culture is I have a passion. They always use that same word. You have a passion with what you enjoy in life and these things, and you can clearly see that. And a lot of people who bought both books will write me back and say, I enjoyed your book. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. But you can see the love and the passion you put into it. And it's nice that people recognize that, because I did. I opened up my heart and soul and I spilled it onto the page.
That passion is the perfect word, I would say. Absolutely. After the success, like I said, the hit #1 and everything, did you get any contact from Stephen King's people in regards to the response to the first one or the second one?
No. All I can say is this: I did send him a copy of the first book.
Nice.
I did not hear anything back, but I do know he has it, and that's it. I mean, maybe he got busy moving from Maine down to Florida during that time. I don't know. I haven't sent him a copy of the second one yet. It's on my to-do list, I know. But I hope to get them that copy.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah. The idea of being on Stephen King's bookshelf is like the coolest thing.
Oh, you know what? It's an honor among honors as far as I'm concerned. But I will tell you this: there are some celebrity contributor friends of mine that were in the first book and the second one, like Tommy McLaughlin and Mick Garris and Richard Chismar. They send me pictures of them holding my book, and to see those guys holding my book, I feel like Wayne's World. I'm not worried. But I appreciate and love their support. Those I never thought in a million years these guys would support me, and they enjoyed what I did, and it's great.
That's how you know what you're giving people is good. Those people wouldn't stand behind something that wasn't representative. Yeah,
I mean they just were great support people, and and it goes in turn. You support your friends and they support you, and it's just a great feeling both ways. And when you read ratings, 5-star ratings or book reviews on Amazon or Bear Manor or Goodreads, and you see what people, how they feel about after they're done reading your book, and you're just like, wow, I did it. So it's a great feeling.
Yeah. Did any of the people you interviewed in the first book reach out to you after the second one, or after the first book came out, I guess?
As far as just saying thank you, or
did that tell you that they picked it up and
yeah. I have a photo album that I collect everybody who bought it, and they hold a copy of it, take a picture, a selfie, a book selfie, and I have this photo album that I save all those pictures in.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to and I'll say it again, the emails and messages that I get from people, just regular readers, regular Stephen King fans from around the world, they said, hey, I got your book. I'm in Russia, or I'm in England, or I'm in New Zealand, or I'm in Australia. My book is on the other side of the world and someone's holding it. It's insane.
How does it feel to have a book that's in Russian? I
don't know. I don't know, man. I hope they I have no words for that. Just humbling, I guess. That's the only one I can think of. Humbling and thankful and blessed. Those are the three words I can think of. Ever since this journey started for me.
Yeah. So, I'm curious, because longtime fans of our show and of Stephen King's Dollar Babies know that the program is now over. So I've got to ask, what was the last new Dollar Baby you've seen?
Well, that's that's kind of hard to say, because I am in the process of watching some now.
Oh,
last year they were the last batch, not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah.
Because I am working on the third book of the trilogy.
Oh,
so there's some not Lucky Quarter, Stationary Bike, the music version of Mute, Survivor Type. Harvey's Dream, just some of those I've already watched already and already got the interviews for and stuff. So yeah, I got to see some of it's kind of hard to see those from 2024, because some people, they didn't get them to film it in time. The contract ended and that was it. So
yeah. So getting to see the last batch of Dollar Babies has got to feel like a little final, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because it's to know there will be no more films being made anymore. This is it. This is the last of it. Graduation day kind of feeling. And there is
good reference.
There is a bit of sadness to it, but it's also an honor to be able to see these last ones. And I'm very, very fortunate to be one of those people to see the last ones. So I cherish him deeply,
Yeah.
and honored to be able to be one of those people. So
In the book, you have list several of the dollar babies that have just like complete list of ones that have been done that were available. Having seen so many, because you mentioned Stationary Bike a little bit ago, and at one time I'd been looking at that as a potential, like if I wanted to do a dollar baby, and I thought it would be so challenging to translate that story because of that style. Have you noticed, because you've seen so many versions of the same story, are there any particular that you find are more challenging to adapt or more common for people to adapt?
well, like I said, I've seen over 100 of these, way over 100 of these, and I've seen
Mm-hmm.
them from all around the world. What I love about this whole thing is that there's filmmakers out there who have their vision of what they see when they've read King's story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Newt, for example. Someone read that story. They said, "I'm going to go grab a camera. I'm going to get this contract. I'm going to put my vision of what I think that story should look like on the big screen." And then, in the end, that version could be animated, it could be a musical, it could be black and white, whatever that director had in his mind of how he saw it.
Yeah.
So I guess the variety of different versions of these directors is wonderful, because I've seen some animated ones that blew me away. I saw the black and white ones
Oh.
are very very film school art type feel to them, the black and
Yeah.
white. And then there's some that are just so simple, just a simple 5-10 minute movie,
Mm-hmm.
short, sweet, cut to the point. They all are unique. They are all special in their own way. There's no one better than another, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. Do you have of all of the adaptations? I won't say a favorite dollar baby because that's an insane question.
I will never
But
answer that question.
yeah,
I will
but
never
do you have a favorite, or let's go easier? Stories that when you see, oh, I get to see an adaptation of One for the Road. I'm always excited to see One for the Road. Is
Mhm.
there any title like that that you, as soon as you see you're going to get that dollar baby, you're like, I love it, I'm in?
Yeah, there's so many versions, like Mute and One for the Road and Man Who Loves Flowers. There's like hundreds of the
So many of those,
versions of
yeah.
those, because King only gave just a certain amount of stories to choose from, and
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I wish he would have gave us, the filmmakers more choices. Um, but I will never say what my favorite one is, but because they're all my favorites in one way or another.
Yeah.
But there are some that stand out a little bit more than others. But I will say this: there was a dollar baby of The Monkey by Spencer Sherry that came out,
Oh.
and I absolutely loved it. It was scary as hell, if I can say that word on the air. It was great. I loved it. And now with the new Monkey coming out in theaters next month by Osgood Perkins, I cannot wait for that movie, because I've seen the dollar baby version by Spencer Sherry. Now I get to see the Osgood Perkins version. It's going to be great. So yeah, we talk about on my fan page I run on social media, All Things King, and they're like, "God, I wish I could see these movies." And I'm like, I've seen them, and all I can tell you is it's wonderful. If they're great, read the book. That's the second best thing to watch the movies. But yeah, and then the other side of me is like, again, I'm honored to have been chosen in this life to write these books and see these movies, because it's a very rarity. So yeah.
Yeah. In the time that you've been a part of the dollar baby community, how do you feel it has changed?
I mean, my personal experience
Mm-hmm.
of being in the part of the community, I guess, the two things I can think of off the top of my head is, one is the technology of making these movies has changed. Like I said before, from
Yeah.
8 millimeter to regular film to phones to whatever, the quality of the films have changed. But as far as the community themselves, it's gotten bigger. I mean, it got huge. I mean, there was only a dozen dollar babies back in the 80s, early 90s, the first generation, as I call them, of dollar baby filmmakers, and they didn't have social media or the internet to connect or talk to each other and stuff. But now it's all over the world. So you could go and be friends or talk to a dollar baby filmmaker, like I said, in New Zealand, just by the click of a button on your social media, and to connect to that person like that in a blink of an eye and talk about King and his movie is great. So, there's the technology part of it, but the community really, welcomed me, and they loved what I did, and they're honored, and they're just, feel so special that I put this spotlight on them and gave them their stories. I put their stories on paper and put it out there, and they're just they're very happy and excited about it.
It's so great because we talked about this, I think, in our first interview also, and a lot about it at the Dollar Baby Film Fest, that one of the best things is earlier mentioning that range of budget. Like, for example, these movies come from the heart of the filmmaker. They are, each one is a love letter. Yeah. And these people didn't make a dime. These people didn't make a cent off of anything they did. So it's all love that goes into it. And I feel like it's got to be so rewarding for them, especially the people in that first book who had no way to know this would be coming, to have the sacrifices they went through celebrated in such a permanent way, because their project will never be able to be out there. But this is a piece of their project out in the world. You gave that to all these people, and that's really awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How do you feel about it ending?
Okay. At first, I was upset and sad, and then I turned angry. Not in a violent way.
Sure.
But angry in the sense that it was like this is unfair. And like, there's so many filmmakers out there that are just finding out about the program, or thanks to my book, they just found out about the program or whatever. And they're like, oh, great, I want to make one of these. Oh, it ended? Well, dang, there goes my chance, And I'm like, that wasn't fair. And I got really upset when this happened. I was hoping that maybe someone would carry the torch, like Joe Hill or King's secretary, or someone could just keep it going. I don't feel he should have just ended it like that, and not much of an explanation just because his secretary was going to retire. Okay, that's fine. People retire, but you could have had someone else take over, And I guess the unfairness is what makes me sad the most, because I know from my experience of talking with these dollar babies, meeting them in person, there's so many talented people out there. I mean, really talented people. And, there's more out there that didn't get their chance. So those who did, you guys are in the Stephen King history book. You guys are, you're there. You're in the book.
I mean, literally, they're in the history book.
So, but yeah, but on the other hand, I don't feel it's ended on another kind of a note, because I am writing a third book. Like I said, I originally wanted to do a trilogy. I don't know if it was going to happen or not, but now it officially is, and I've started it. And so there's more to tell, because there's other filmmakers I didn't reach out to during the first two books. There are people who have their own thoughts and feelings about this program and these films. I don't want to reveal too much about what's in the third book, but there's a lot of stuff that still can be covered. And then that's about it. I don't think there's much after that I could say.
I mean, a strong trilogy is the way to wrap it up.
Yeah. I've been a trilogy fan since the Star Wars trilogy from the 80s. A good trilogy is always go out on a high note.
Okay, so I won't push you too hard on the third book.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask. We talked about it. The first question out of the gate here was, how were you making it bigger and better? Can you give us any hints on how this one's going to be even bigger?
I can give you a couple of things. Number one, physically, it will not be 950 pages. It's going to be 1,980 pages.
Here we go. Double it every time.
Why not? No, it's not my publisher. I got to tell you this. My publisher said, yes, we'll do a third book, of course, but you got to do two things for me. And I said, what's that? He goes, number one, do not put it out before Christmas. And number two, do not make it 958 pages. Okay.
Deal. Heard. Both of those sound great, actually.
I will tell you a couple of breaking news things here. First of all, it's called Stephen King Encore is what it's called.
Nice.
Because I figure, the first two books were so wonderful, just like being on the stage, pull the curtain back, come back on the stage at a concert, encore, Anyway, so that's what it's called, Stephen King Encore. It's going to have a lot of surprises, a lot of surprise guest appearances, contributions, celebrity contributions, again, and some surprise contributions.
Yeah.
And then there's also something I'm putting in this book that has never been done before. And I'm really excited about that. Again, I don't want to spoil it.
Interesting.
But, it's going to be very cool. So
my interest is piqued.
Yeah.
So I mean, when can we expect it?
It's slated for 2026. But who knows, if I get it done, earlier than that and it's ready to go, maybe, in the fall, who knows, but it's early 2026 is when it's slated. So
perfect.
Yeah.
What else do you have going on in your creative world? You got any other projects in the pipeline?
Right now, my full focus, besides regular life and work, shoveling snow, is just focusing on this third book to make it as better than the first two. Put everything I got into it, wrap it up with a nice bow, and call it a day. I want to give the readers what they deserve, and give them 100% of my, what I've got. That's what they're going to get.
Nice.
Now, I don't have anything past that. I mean, there's a couple things I'm working on as far as one of my short stories being made into a film. There's another short story that will be part of another project. I can't say anything because I haven't been approved to say anything. What I can tell you, I don't know if you can see this or not, this book.
Yes.
Okay, this is, and I always pronounce it wrong, Macabre, if I pronounce it right, a horror anthology. This is from my friend MS Chambers. You met her, Samantha Chambers at Currents, my groupie. She put this together. It came out last year, the end of last year. This is an anthology of short stories of horror of all angles, from poetry to the gore to suspense to all kinds. I wrote the introduction to this book, and my first published fiction story is in this. It is called Limited Edition, is the name of the story. Actually, it's a novella. Actually, it's not even a short story. It's a novella.
Whoa! All right, burying the lead. You just snuck a novel past me.
I used to write fiction when I first started writing, way back 30-some years ago. I just started writing short stories, and I stuck them in a drawer, and they're collecting dust, and then Samantha came to me and said, "Hey, you want to write the introduction?" I said, "Yeah, of course, I'll write the introduction." And then she's like, "Well, do you want to write a story for it?" And I'm just like, okay. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I've got a drawer full of stories. Let me knock the dust off and see what happens. And I found one that fit, and I updated it, cleaned it up a little bit, And it's funny because I wrote that story 20 years ago.
Wow.
So here it is 20 years later, and it's actually in print, out there, available.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it's called Limited Edition. I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just say this much. If you've ever been a fan or a collector when you're a kid of something, you'll relate to this story. But you don't want what happens in the end to happen to you.
Where can we pick it up?
You can pick it up at Amazon. Okay. You can pick it up at Goodreads. If you're in North Dakota, you can pick it up Silver Dawn Books. It's available anywhere your favorite book websites.
Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to meet and talk about Dollar Babies again. I need you to promise me something like you also promised your publisher.
What's that?
You'll come back after book 3.
I will. I missed you guys. I had so much fun meeting you guys in 2022. It was such a great time. You guys are awesome. And I love Derry Public Radio. I'm a big fan of this podcast. So everybody always tune in to Derry Public Radio. Look for Dollar Baby Encore coming in 2026, and you can pick up Dollar Baby the book and Dollar Baby the sequel at Bear Manor Media, at Amazon, at Goodreads, Walmart, all your places where you want to buy books. It's there.
Fantastic. All right, let's boost those sales.
Shameless plug.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you one more time, Tony, Anthony Northrup. Go buy Dollar Baby, Stephen King Dollar Baby the sequel. Buy the Dollar Baby book, then you'll have all 3 of them when the third one comes out. It'll be perfect. Everyone, thank you. Long days and pleasant nights.